This video is about the questions from several friends regarding the interpretation of Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson's abundance. Below are our responses, for reference only. Question 1. It's said that in 1930, Keynes predicted that by 2030, people would only need to work 15 hours a week. Now that year is almost here, but there's no sign of such a shift. In fact, some industries still follow a 996 schedule. So, can AI really bring about a 3-day workweek? Response. If we were willing to maintain the living standards of 1930, no air conditioning, few cars, limited clothing, and far smaller living spaces, then yes, we wouldn't need to work very long hours. The reality is that Keynes underestimated human desire. Much of today's demand simply didn't exist in his time. Moreover, the extra economic activity has mainly come from the service sector. The more developed a country is, the higher the proportion of GDP that comes from services. And so far, AI hasn't replaced service work. Industries like food service, caregiving, and education are inherently human-to-human and continue to generate large numbers of jobs. Robots might take over manufacturing, but that sector already employs relatively few people. What role AI will play in rewriting this story remains uncertain. Question 2. Hello, I've never quite understood the idea of leaving your comfort zone. After all the effort it takes to find and adapt to a comfortable place, why should we be encouraged to leave it? Can't breakthroughs happen within the comfort zone? Is stepping out of it really necessary for growth? Has leaving the comfort zone just become an empty slogan with no real value? Response. Leaving the comfort zone is not just a slogan. It has real value. This ties into what's called the Red Queen effect, which suggests that even to stay in the same place, you must keep running fast. Others have already left their comfort zones, so if you want to maintain your position, you have to keep moving forward too. Take, for example, the TV dramas that depict life in China's state-owned factories decades ago. Many people see that life as idyllic. The workplace took care of everything. There was hardly any competition, co-workers were friendly, everyone was focused on building the country, and maybe falling in love along the way. But that ideal life was an illusion. At the time, the vast majority of Chinese people, especially farmers, couldn't enjoy that lifestyle at all. In fact, they had to give up extra grain to subsidize it. Being a state enterprise worker was essentially like holding a hereditary title, backed by unconditional state support. Yet the situation was precarious. While one machine might be used in a state factory for decades, and one trade passed down through 3 generations of workers, foreign technology was advancing rapidly. When China began to open up its economy, these workers were quickly outcompeted by the very township and village enterprises they used to look down on. Question 3. I'd like to ask, what are the key advantages of big cities? If I have no choice but to develop my career in a small city, are there any alternative solutions to those advantages? Response. Big cities offer smart people opportunities for innovation, and poor people a chance to rise. And at the core of all this is the fact that big cities are societies of strangers, where any 2 individuals can quickly collaborate. Only in big cities can a company reasonably hand a good job to someone with no internal connections. I'm not sure how small your small city is, but if it's a county-level town, then most good jobs are already spoken for. In small places, where population movement is limited, society is based on personal connections. That means all the benefits have already been distributed. If you have a place in that system, then of course it's good for you. But if you don't, or if you want to accomplish something bigger, then you have to go to a major city. There's a saying, I'm not sure who first said it. If your family has political connections, join the civil service. If your family has local influence, manage what they've built. But if you have neither, then why stay behind just to serve those who do? Question 4. Hello, as I understand it, the widespread adoption of clean energy is a historical trend. You've mentioned that Trump has repeatedly expressed disdain for clean energy. Can he really reverse the course of history? If not, is his opposition just a strategy to gain votes? Response. Yes, Trump's stance is all about winning votes. He is backing from interest groups. The oil and gas industry has donated significantly to his campaigns. He also has a strong support base in the Rust Belt, shale regions, and coal country. On top of that, there's an anti-intellectual element. Many MAGA supporters deeply resent the elite-driven narrative around green energy and climate issues. But Trump can't stop the tide of history. For one, federal power in the U.S. is limited. State governments have their own authority to push for clean energy, and many are doing so aggressively. In fact, 42 states have renewable portfolio standards or net zero targets. More importantly, clean energy is profitable. The cost of generating electricity from solar and wind has dropped significantly. In some places, it's already cheaper than natural gas. And those costs continue to fall. The key is that solar and wind are riding the wave of rapid technological advancement, while fossil fuels have stagnated. That said, Trump can slow the trend, but he can't stop it. Question 5. To what extent must AI advance before humans will believe it can manage rules and adaptability better than we can, and thus be willing to co-govern with it? Response. I honestly believe that, if the US president were an AI, the country might run better. But the truth is, humans will never hand over power to AI. It's not just about competence. It's about accountability. If something goes wrong, who do we blame? With great power comes great responsibility. You can use AI to advise you, but the final decision must be yours. That's because, in the face of uncertainty, people instinctively trust a person over a probability. No matter how advanced it is, AI can't predict the future with certainty. Because the future, by nature, is unpredictable. Theory can only take you so far. Every major decision ultimately requires a leap beyond what can be computed. A judgment call. I can't promise this will work, but I've made the call. Will you follow me? If people choose to follow, that's the essence of leadership. The reason they choose that path, beyond all rational calculation, is not because the odds are better. It's because you are on that path. They trust that you will keep their best interests in mind at every turn. And I understand that this kind of trust goes beyond logic. Even MAGA supporters know Trump isn't an economist. They wouldn't ask him for help with their math homework. They choose Trump because, to them, he simply feels like one of their own. Question 6. Hello, after reading the final sections of your analysis, my overall impression is that the US seems to be trapped in a kind of fiscal dilemma. Could this be a deeper explanation behind many of the issues? Response. The US is indeed facing a fiscal dilemma. The government deficit is growing larger and larger. This trend is clear in the data. Around the year 2000, there was even a slight surplus. But by 2010, and especially after the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, the deficit ballooned dramatically. These deficits have to be financed through debt, and debt comes with interest. Today, the total U.S. government debt exceeds $35 trillion, and just paying the interest now costs more than either the defense budget or Medicare. That's clearly unsustainable. The root cause is simple. Government spending is high, and tax revenue is low. So is this a crisis? That's hard to say. According to modern monetary theory, MMT, as long as the government can raise enough taxes to cover the interest, high deficits aren't necessarily a problem. But relying purely on financial tools still leaves people uneasy. The key point is that the U.S. doesn't have a revenue problem. It has a tax policy problem. America's tax burden is relatively low compared to other developed countries. Republicans constantly push for tax cuts, especially for the wealthy, who already have countless ways to avoid taxes, and then enjoy even lower rates. There is still plenty of room for raising taxes. On the spending side, slashing science funding or foreign aid, as Musk and others have advocated, barely makes a dent. The real solution lies in reforming healthcare to lower medical and drug costs, and in cracking down on corruption within the defense sector. If that's not enough, raising the retirement age by just 1 year would also help. If those steps are taken, the deficit wouldn't be a major problem. There's no fundamental conflict forcing America into war with other nations. Trump's approach, however, is to replace income taxes with tariffs, which essentially frees the rich from tax burdens and shifts the cost onto the poor. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.